The ancient observatory on Mount Kailash hummed with quiet energy as Dr. Elena Vasquez checked the readings for the thousandth time that week. The massive crystalline array, built by her ancestors 6 millennia ago, had been scanning the cosmos with unwavering patience. Today, something was different. "Commander Chun, you need to see this," Elena called out, her voice echoing through the underground chamber carved from solid rock. The walls were covered in intricate symbols that seemed to glow with their own light, a writing system that predated known civilization by thousands of years. Commander Marcus Chun, head of Earth's Unified Defense Network, approached the central console where holographic displays showed star charts spanning light years. His weathered face bore the lines of someone who had spent decades preparing for a day he hoped would never come. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" he asked, studying the pulsing red dots that had appeared on the outer edge of their sensor range. 17 ships, possibly more. They're moving in formation toward our solar system. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. Elena's fingers danced across the crystal interface, bringing up detailed scans. But the pattern recognition system is going crazy. It's like these readings match something from the archive. The archive. She knew what that meant. 6,000 years ago, when humanity was just beginning to understand agriculture, a group of people had received a vision, not from gods or spirits, but from their own descendants traveling back through time. The message was simple, but terrifying: prepare for war. "Show me the comparative analysis," Chun ordered. The display shifted, showing 2 sets of readings side by side. One was current, fresh from their sensors. The other was ancient, stored in quantum crystals that had waited 60 centuries to be relevant again. "Perfect match," Elena whispered, down to the last decimal point. "These are the ships our ancestors were warned about." Chun activated his neural implant, connecting instantly to the global defense network. Within seconds, every major military installation on Earth received the alert code that had been prepared for 6,000 years: Prometheus Protocol. Across the planet, hidden installations began powering up. In the Sahara Desert, massive particle accelerators buried beneath the sand started their startup sequences. Under the ice of Antarctica, fusion reactors that had been maintained in perfect condition since before recorded history came online. In the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, weapons platforms that looked like natural rock formations began extending their targeting arrays. "How long do we have?" Chun asked. "Based on their current trajectory and speed, approximately 72 hours before they reach Earth's orbit," Elena replied, pulling up trajectory calculations that filled the air with glowing lines and numbers. Chun nodded grimly. 72 hours to prepare for a war that had been 6 millennia in the making. In the Arctic facility known as Vault Prime, Director Sarah Kim received the Prometheus alert while reviewing maintenance schedules for humanity's most closely guarded secret. The vast underground complex stretched for miles beneath the ice, housing technology that officially didn't exist. "Initiate awakening protocol," she commanded to her assembled staff. "Authorization, Sarah Kim, 77 Alpha 9. Deep in the vault's lower levels, cryogenic systems that had maintained their precious cargo for thousands of years began their revival sequences. Hundreds of volunteers, the best and brightest of their generations, had agreed to sleep until humanity's darkest hour. Scientists, engineers, warriors, and tacticians who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. The first to awaken was General Harrison Vale, a military strategist whose theories on asymmetric warfare had been studied by every major military academy for the past century before his voluntary hibernation. As the cryogenic chamber opened with a soft hiss, Vale's eyes snapped open with the clarity of someone who had been dreaming of battle for a very long time. "Status report," he said, sitting up as medical technicians ran basic scans to ensure his revival had been successful. 17 alien vessels, inbound, arrival in 71 hours and 36 minutes, Director Kim replied. "All protocols are active. We're finally awake." Vale smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "Then, let's show them what 6,000 years of preparation looks like." Meanwhile, in cities around the world, The civilian population remained unaware of the approaching threat. Emergency protocols required that panic be avoided at all costs. Instead, subtle preparations began. Traffic management systems started routing people away from major cities under the guise of infrastructure maintenance. Emergency services quietly moved to enhanced readiness. Food distribution networks activated reserves that had been stockpiled for generations. In orbit around Earth, what appeared to be ordinary communications satellites began reconfiguring themselves. Their solar panels folded back to reveal weapon systems that had been disguised for decades. Ion cannons, railguns, and exotic energy weapons that existed nowhere in public scientific literature powered up for the first time since their construction. The moon itself harbored secrets that even most government officials didn't know about. Hidden bases built into natural caves housed entire fleets of human starships, vessels that incorporated technology reverse-engineered from theoretical physics that wouldn't be discovered for another century in the normal timeline. At the Arecibo facility in Puerto Rico, now expanded far beyond its original design, Dr. James Morrison monitored the alien fleet's communications. The signals were complex, layered with encryption that would have been impossible to break using conventional methods. Fortunately, they had something better than conventional methods. "Are you getting anything useful from her chatter?" asked his assistant, Dr. Linda Rodriguez. Morrison adjusted the quantum decryption array, a device that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. "They're definitely not friendly. The word that keeps appearing in their communications roughly translates to harvest. They're talking about our planet like it's a resource to be exploited. Any mention of humanity, specifically? That's the interesting part. They don't seem to know we're here. Their scans are focused on our planet's mineral resources and biological diversity. They might not realize we're a sapient species." Morrison paused his analysis and looked at Rodriguez with a grim expression. "Or they don't care." Back at Mount Kailash, Elena continued monitoring the approaching fleet while Chen coordinated with defense installations across the globe. The ancient symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with increased intensity, as if the structure itself was responding to the approaching threat. "Elena, I need you to access the deep archives," Chen said. "Everything our ancestors left us about these beings. Their weaknesses, their technology, their tactics. 6,000 years ago, someone went to incredible lengths to make sure we'd be ready for this day." Elena placed her palm on a crystal scanner that verified her genetic markers before granting access to humanity's most guarded secrets. The chamber filled with holographic displays showing star charts, technical schematics, and tactical analyses that had been waiting 6 millennia to be used. "My God," she breathed as the information washed over her. "They're called the Devourers. They've been traveling the galaxy for millions of years, stripping planets of all useful resources before moving on. They've destroyed thousands of civilizations. But not us," Chun said firmly. "Not humanity. We've had 6,000 years to prepare for this moment." As the hours counted down to humanity's first contact with an alien species, the planet quietly transformed itself into something the Devourers had never encountered before, a trap that had been 6 millennia in the making. In space, the 17 ships of the Devourer fleet continued their approach, confident in their overwhelming technological superiority. They had no idea they were flying into the most elaborate ambush in galactic history. Commander Zrak stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Hunger, its massive bulk dwarfing the other 16 vessels in the Devourer fleet. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, the blue-green world ahead looked perfectly ordinary, another resource-rich planet ripe for consumption. "Initial scans complete, Commander," reported Navigation Officer Yilmars, her 4 arms working efficiently across multiple control surfaces. "Carbon-based biosphere, extensive water reserves, and mineral deposits beyond standard parameters. This will be a profitable harvest." Zrak nodded, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking softly as he moved. The Devourers had been harvesting worlds for so long that the process had become routine. Arrive, scan, strip, move on. In his 300 years of service, he had overseen the consumption of 47 worlds. "Any signs of intelligent life?" he asked, though he expected the usual answer. "Minimal technological signatures. Some basic electromagnetic emissions that suggest a primitive civilization, but nothing that would pose any resistance to our operations." Standard protocol, then: deploy the preliminary harvesters and begin atmospheric processing. As the Devourer fleet entered Earth's outer solar system, automated probes shot ahead of the main force. These scouts were designed to map the planet's defenses and resources, though they rarely found anything more threatening than Bronze Age weapons and wooden fortifications. On Earth, every telescope, radar installation, and sensor array tracked the approaching probes. In the hidden command center beneath the Himalayas, General Vale watched the tactical displays with the patience of someone who had spent a lifetime preparing for this exact moment. 6 probe craft, spreading in a standard reconnaissance pattern, reported Captain Martinez from the tracking station. "They'll be in range of our outer perimeter in 14 minutes. Vale studied the approach vectors, comparing them to the tactical predictions that had been refined over 6,000 years. "Perfect. They're following the exact pattern the archives predicted. Signal all stations. Operation Doorstep is active." Across the solar system, hidden installations that had masqueraded as asteroids, space debris, and natural phenomena for decades began powering up. The probes scanning for primitive radio signals and basic industrial signatures completely missed the quantum-encrypted communications linking hundreds of concealed weapons platforms. The first probe to reach Earth's outer defense perimeter was designated Scout 7 by its creators. As it passed what appeared to be an unremarkable asteroid, its sensors detected nothing unusual. The asteroid's surface looked exactly like millions of others scattered throughout the solar system, weathered by eons of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts. The probe was still transmitting its all-clear signal when the asteroid split open like a flower, revealing a massive railgun that had been waiting in perfect stillness for 60 years. The magnetic acceleration chamber charged in microseconds, launching a tungsten projectile at a significant fraction of light speed. Scout 7 ceased to exist before it could register the attack. "First kill confirmed," reported Commander Liu from the asteroid base designated Watchdog 3. "Target eliminated with 0 enemy response." Proceeding to secondary position. One by one, the Devourer probes encountered Earth's hidden defenses. Some were destroyed by particle beams fired from hollowed-out moons. Others fell to smart mines that had been disguised as space debris for generations. Within 30 minutes, all 6 scouts had been eliminated without sending so much as a distress signal back to the main fleet. On the bridge of the Eternal Hunger, Zrak began to feel the first stirrings of unease as the probe telemetry feeds went dark. "Navigation report. Why we lost contact with the scouts?" Yilmaz worked frantically at her controls. "Unknown, Commander. All 6 probes have stopped transmitting. Sensor interference is unusual. I'm detecting energy patterns that don't match our database." Zrak's mandibles clicked together in frustration. In 3 centuries of harvesting, he had never lost all reconnaissance probes to natural phenomena. "Deploy a full squadron. I want to know what happened to those scouts." 12 Devourer fighters launched from the flagship's bays, their organic-looking hulls gleaming with the bioluminescent patterns that marked their species. These weren't simple probes, but fully armed combat craft capable of devastating primitive worlds single-handedly. On Earth, every child learned about the Battle of Luna in school, though they were taught it was an ancient historical conflict rather than a carefully planned deception. The moon's surface was scarred with what appeared to be impact craters from a long-ago war, but those craters concealed launch bays that housed humanity's most advanced starfighters. Admiral Sarah Chun, Commander Marcus Chin's daughter who had joined the Sleepers program 20 years earlier, sat in the cockpit of her interceptor deep within Luna Base Alpha. Around her, 49 other pilots prepared for humanity's first space battle. "All call signs, this is Lunar Command," came the voice of Flight Controller Davis. 12 bandits inbound. Estimated time to engagement 17 minutes. Remember, the enemy doesn't know we exist yet. Make your shots count. Sarah's fighter, officially designated as Experimental Craft X-7, but nicknamed Peacekeeper by its pilot, lifted off from the hidden hangar and joined the formation emerging from the moon's carefully disguised surface. The vessels looked unlike anything in human science fiction, their designs based on principles that wouldn't be publicly known for another century. The Devourer Squadron approached Earth's orbital space with confidence born of millions of successful invasions. Squadron leader Crixtal had personally destroyed the defenses of 12 different worlds, and the energy readings from this blue planet suggested nothing more challenging than communication satellites and weather monitoring stations. Maintain formation, he commanded his pilots. Scan for any trace of the missing probes, then begin preliminary bombardment of major population centers. The 12 fighters were still discussing their attack patterns when they flew into the carefully prepared kill zone between Earth and Luna. Sarah Chen's squadron had been waiting in the shadow of a derelict space station, their ships powered down to minimal signatures. Lunar Squadron, you are weapons free, came the authorization they had trained their entire lives to hear. Sarah's targeting computer locked onto the lead Devourer fighter just as her ship's fusion engines roared to full power. The Peacekeeper shot out of concealment like an arrow, its plasma cannons charging with an energy signature that made the alien pilot's sensors scream warnings. Crixtal had enough time to register that something was wrong before his ship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. Around him, his squadron found themselves under attack from human fighters that moved with impossible coordination and fired weapons that shouldn't have existed. Unknown hostiles. Unknown hostiles. Crixtal's wingman managed to transmit before his ship, too, was reduced to expanding debris. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When the weapon signatures finally faded, 12 pieces of alien wreckage tumbled slowly through space, while 50 human fighters regrouped in perfect formation. Lunar Command, this is Squadron Leader Chun. All targets eliminated. No friendly casualties. The enemy never knew what hit them. On the bridge of the Eternal Hunger, alarm signals blared as the fleet received the final panic transmissions from the fighter squadron. Commander, Yilmaz reported, her voice rising in pitch with stress. The fighter squadron has been destroyed. Energy signatures indicate advanced plasma weapons and coordinated multiple ship attacks. Zrak stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In his entire career, he had never encountered resistance that could eliminate an entire Devourer fighter squadron. That's impossible. Our intelligence shows this world has barely achieved basic spaceflight. The sensor data doesn't lie, Commander. Whatever destroyed our forces is using technology comparable to our own. For the first time in 300 years, Zrak felt something he had almost forgotten: uncertainty. Signal the fleet. Combat formation. It appears this harvest will not be as simple as anticipated. As the 17 massive Devourer ships arranged themselves for battle, they had no idea that their every movement was being tracked by sensors that had been watching the stars for 60 centuries. In hidden bunkers around the world, generals who had been sleeping in cryogenic stasis reviewed battle plans that had been refined across millennia. Humanity's trap was about to be sprung. General Harrison Vale stood in the war room 3 miles beneath the Tibetan Plateau, surrounded by holographic displays that showed every ship in the Devourer fleet. The chamber hummed with quiet energy as quantum computers processed tactical data that had been accumulating for 6,000 years. Fleet composition analysis complete, reported Colonel Kim, one of the recently awakened tactical specialists. 17 vessels total. 1 command dreadnought, 8 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and 2 support ships. Combined firepower exceeds anything we've ever projected. Vale nodded, studying the alien formation with eyes that had seen every possible variation of this scenario in countless simulations. But they're following pattern 7, exactly as the archives predicted. They think they're facing a primitive civilization that got lucky with a few advanced weapons. Around the war room, dozens of awakened specialists worked at stations that control humanity's hidden arsenal. Each person had volunteered for cryogenic sleep decades earlier, choosing to sacrifice their normal lives for the chance to defend their species when this moment arrived. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Reynolds, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. Universal translator protocols are active." The main display shimmered and resolved into the image of Commander Zraktich. His chitinous features and multiple eyes made him appear like something from humanity's darkest nightmares. But Vale saw something else in the alien's bearing: arrogance. Primitive inhabitants of the third planet, Zraktich's translated voice echoed through the chamber. "I am Commander Zraktich of the Devourer Fleet. Your world has been selected for resource extraction. Surrender your population centers, and we will make your deaths quick." Vale stepped forward, his image being transmitted back to the alien fleet through hidden communication arrays. "Commander Zraktich, I am General Harrison Vale of the Terran Defense Forces. I'm afraid we're going to have to decline your generous offer." There was a pause as Zraktich processed this response. "You dare to refuse? Your primitive weapons may have surprised our scouts, but you face the might of the Devourer Empire. We have consumed 1,000 worlds." "I know," Vale replied calmly. "We've been preparing for your arrival for 6,000 years." The transmission cut off abruptly. On the alien flagship's bridge, Zraktich turned to his weapons officer with barely contained fury. "Target the largest population centers. Show them the price of defiance." As the Devourer fleet powered their weapons, automated systems across Earth began implementing the final phase of humanity's defensive plan. In orbit, what had appeared to be defunct satellites suddenly burst to life, revealing themselves as sophisticated shield generators. A shimmering barrier began forming around the planet, sections linking together like pieces of an enormous puzzle. "Planetary defense grid at full power," reported shield technician Morrison from a station in the Australian underground complex. "All 736 nodes are online and synchronizing." The first salvo from the Devourer fleet struck Earth's shields like hammers against an anvil. Beams of coherent energy that could have melted continents splashed harmlessly against barriers that had been designed by minds that understood the fundamental forces of the universe in ways that wouldn't be discovered for centuries. "Shield integrity holding at 97%, Morrison called out. "Automatic recharge systems compensating for absorbed energy." On the Eternal Hunger, Weapons Officer Trakenel stared at his displays in confusion. "Commander, our bombardment appears to be ineffective. The planet is protected by some form of energy barrier." Zraktich's mandibles ground together. "Impossible. Our weapons can crack the crust of a planet. Increase power to maximum." For 20 minutes, the Devourer fleet poured devastating firepower onto Earth's shields. Energy that could have boiled oceans and shattered mountains was absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. With each failed attack, Zraktich's confidence eroded a little more. "Sir," reported Navigation Officer Yilmars, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout this system. Something is powering up." She was right. Hidden installations on every major moon, asteroid, and planetary body in the solar system were beginning to reveal themselves. On Mars, what had appeared to be natural rock formations split open to reveal massive particle accelerators. The asteroid belt suddenly bristled with weapon platforms that had been disguised for decades. But the real surprise came from Earth itself. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vale announced to his command staff, "it's time to show our guests what human engineering can accomplish with sufficient motivation. Activate the continental defense systems." Across Earth's surface, mountain ranges that had stood unchanged for millennia began to transform. The Himalayas split open along hidden fault lines, revealing cannon barrels the size of skyscrapers. The Rocky Mountains reconfigured themselves into massive railgun assemblies. Even the ocean floors erupted with weapon systems that had been built into the planet's crust itself. Admiral Sarah Chun, who had returned to Luna Base after her successful fighter engagement, watched the spectacle from her observation deck. "My God," she breathed. "The entire planet is a weapon." The first shots from Earth's planetary defense systems lit up the space around the Devourer fleet like artificial suns. Particle beams that drew power from the planet's core reached out across hundreds of thousands of miles to strike alien vessels with precision that defied physics. The Devourer destroyer's swift death was the first to fall. A concentrated beam from the Andes mountain complex struck it amidships, and the alien vessel simply ceased to exist, its molecular structure reduced to component atoms in microseconds. Evasive maneuvers. Zrak-TH screamed as his fleet scattered, but there was nowhere to run. The defensive grid extended throughout the entire solar system, with overlapping fields of fire that had been calculated and recalculated millions of times. A second destroyer exploded as Mars-based weapons systems found their range. Then, a heavy cruiser vanished under concentrated fire from the asteroid belt platforms. The Devourer fleet, which had entered the system expecting easy conquest, found themselves trapped in a carefully prepared killing ground. "Commander, we've lost 4 ships." Yilmaz reported, her voice tight with panic. "Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses, but they're cutting through our shields like they don't exist." Zrak-TH watched his fleet die around him and felt something no Devourer commander had experienced in a million years of conquest: fear. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the battle from the Mariana Defense Platform, a facility built into the deepest trenches of Earth's oceans. The ancient crystalline arrays that had first detected the approaching fleet now coordinated the planet's response with inhuman precision. "General Vale, we have confirmation. The enemy is attempting to retreat," she reported through the quantum communication network. Vale's response was immediate. "Negative. Let none escape. Humanity's survival depends on the galaxy believing we were destroyed along with the invaders." It was a harsh calculation, but a necessary one. If word of Earth's defenses reached the wider Devourer Empire, they would return with overwhelming force. Better to let the galaxy think that both the fleet and the planet had been destroyed in some catastrophic battle. The outer system defensive platforms activated their final protocol. Hidden ships that had waited in the cold depths of space for generations emerged from concealment, surrounding the fleeing Devourer vessels. These weren't the advanced fighters that had engaged the enemy scouts, but massive dreadnoughts built using principles that human science officially wouldn't discover for another 500 years. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the hidden dreadnought Retribution, opened fire on the fleeing Devourer flagship. Her ship's main gun, which channeled the energy output of a small star, struck the eternal hunger with enough force to crack a moon. Commander Zrak-TH had just enough time to realize that his species had made a terrible mistake before his ship joined the expanding cloud of debris that had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. When the last echo of weapons fire faded, 17 pieces of wreckage tumbled silently through space. The Devourer fleet, which had expected to add another world to their long list of conquests, had been utterly annihilated. In command centers around Earth, tactical officers began the careful process of collecting every piece of alien debris. Nothing could be left to drift into space where it might eventually be found. As far as the galaxy was concerned, both the Devourer fleet and the primitive world they had tried to harvest had vanished without a trace. General Vale stood in the war room, watching as the last pieces of alien technology were secured. Around him, his staff began the process of returning Earth's defenses to their hidden configurations. "Colonel Kim, initiat protocole Omega. Return all systems to standby configuration. We need to look like a dead world if anyone comes looking for Zrak-TH's fleet." As if by magic, the weapon systems that had dominated the battle began to disappear. Mountain ranges reassembled themselves over hidden cannons. Orbital platforms disguised themselves as space debris. Within hours, the solar system looked exactly as it had before the battle, showing no signs of the devastating conflict that had just concluded. But In hidden facilities around the world, humanity's guardians remained alert. The 6,000-year wait had ended, but Earth's vigil had just begun. 3 months after the battle, the galaxy remained unaware that the Devourer fleet had been destroyed. In the hidden chambers beneath Earth's surface, teams of scientists worked around the clock to analyze every piece of alien technology they had recovered. Dr. Elena Vasquez led the xenoarchaeology team in a sterile laboratory complex that existed on no official government map. Fragments of Devourer ships floated in containment fields, while quantum scanners mapped their molecular structure with impossible precision. "The metallurgy alone is fascinating," she reported to General Vale during their daily briefing. "They're using materials that our physics says shouldn't be stable, but somehow they've made them work. The implications for our own technology are enormous." Vale nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "What concerns me more is what we've learned about their society. Show me the cultural analysis again." The holographic display filled with data extracted from the aliens' computer systems. Even damaged by battle, the Devourer databases contained detailed records of their conquests spanning millions of years. "Over 40,000 worlds destroyed," reported Dr. James Park, the team's xenobiologist. "Billions of sapient species extinct. They don't just harvest resources, General. They enjoy the destruction. It's cultural, maybe even genetic." The weight of those numbers settled over the room like a physical presence. 40,000 civilizations, each with their own dreams and achievements, reduced to nothing more than raw material for the Devourer war machine. "Sir," interrupted communications specialist Torres, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega." The display shifted to show real-time sensor data from the edge of the solar system. 3 new contacts had appeared, moving toward Earth with the unmistakable energy signatures of Devourer technology. "Search and rescue mission," Vale concluded immediately. When Zrak-TH's fleet failed to report back, they sent someone to investigate. The approaching ships were smaller than the original fleet, but their advanced sensor arrays would make them much harder to fool. If they detected evidence of the battle, the entire Devourer Empire would know that Earth possessed advanced defensive capabilities. "Time to contact?" Vale asked. 47 hours at current speed," Torres replied. 3 ships, frigate class, designed for reconnaissance and data recovery. Vale turned to his staff. "Initiate Deception Protocol 7. I want every trace of the battle erased before they arrive. And prepare the Masquerade fleet for deployment." Across the solar system, cleanup crews worked with desperate efficiency. Debris fields were collected by ships disguised as asteroids. Blast marks on planets and moons were carefully covered with artificial meteor impacts. Even the orbital paths of natural objects were subtly adjusted to hide evidence of the massive weapons that had fired during the battle. The most crucial element of the deception took place on Earth itself. In workshops that had been prepared for exactly this scenario, human engineers worked to create fake wreckage from the original Devourer fleet. Using salvaged alien materials and careful analysis of their construction techniques, they built convincing debris that would tell the story the rescue mission expected to find. Admiral Sarah Chun commanded the Masquerade fleet from her flagship, the Phantom Victory, a vessel that had been designed to perfectly mimic Devourer technology. Around her, 12 other ships waited in the outer system, their hulls crafted to look exactly like human vessels that had been cobbled together from primitive materials. "Remember, people," Chen addressed her crews, "we're playing the role of desperate survivors who got incredibly lucky. We need to look like we barely won this fight, not like we had a decisive technological advantage." The Devourer rescue ships entered the solar system 46 hours later, their sensors immediately detecting the energy signatures they expected to find. The debris field around Earth told a convincing story. The primitive humans had somehow managed to destroy the Harvester fleet, but at enormous cost to themselves. Captain Vextar, commanding the rescue mission, studied the sensor readings with professional interest. "Fascinating. It appears the primitives had more advanced weapons than our initial intelligence suggested. Should we investigate more closely?" asked his science officer. No need. The energy patterns are consistent with a mutually destructive engagement. Both fleets were annihilated. Vextar paused to examine the readings more carefully. Signal the Empire. Recommend that this system be classified as a hazard zone. The primitive species possessed unusually advanced defensive weapons. As the rescue ships prepared to leave, they detected a weak distress signal from the edge of the system. Admiral Chen's masquerade fleet limped into sensor range, their ships showing convincing battle damage and energy signatures that matched primitive human technology. Unknown vessels. This is Captain Chen of the Earth Defense Force, Sarah transmitted, using communication protocols that sounded appropriately crude compared to Devourer standards. Our world has been attacked. We've lost most of our fleet defending our home. Captain Vextar studied the approaching human ships with the detached interest of a scientist examining an interesting specimen. The vessels were clearly cobbled together from multiple sources, showing the desperate innovation of a species fighting for survival. Primitive vessel. This is Captain Vextar of the Devourer Reconnaissance Force. We are investigating the loss of one of our fleets in this system. Your people attacked us without warning, Chen replied, allowing real anger to enter her voice. We had no choice but to defend ourselves. The battle destroyed both our fleets. Indeed, your species has proven more resilient than anticipated. Vextar's tone carried what might have been respect. We will note this in our records. Your world will be classified as economically unfeasible for future harvesting operations. It was exactly what they had hoped to hear. To the Devourers, Earth would now appear to be a world that had exhausted its defensive capabilities in a single desperate battle. Not worth the cost of another major invasion, but too damaged to pose a future threat. The rescue ships departed without investigating further, carrying with them the story that would keep Earth safe for generations to come. As far as the galaxy knew, humanity had won a Pyrrhic victory against overwhelming odds and was now too weak to threaten anyone. But beneath Earth's surface, the real work was just beginning. Excellent performance, Admiral. General Vale congratulated Sarah during the post-mission briefing. The Devourers bought the deception completely. What's our status with the technology analysis? Sarah asked. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward with a data tablet that glowed with holographic displays. We've made significant breakthroughs. The alien computer cores contained not just records of their conquests, but detailed information about other species in the galaxy. Allies, enemies, potential threats. Show me, Vale ordered. The briefing room filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, marked with thousands of points of light in different colors. Red indicated worlds that had been destroyed by the Devourers. Blue showed surviving civilizations. Yellow marked unknown or disputed territories. The scale is overwhelming, Dr. Vasquez continued. There are over 300 surviving civilizations in our galaxy alone, but most of them live in constant fear of the Devourers. Some have formed defensive alliances, others have gone into hiding. Vale studied the map with the eyes of a strategist who was already thinking several moves ahead. Any of them advanced enough to pose a threat to Earth? Several, but they're all focused on their own survival. The Devourers have been the dominant force in this galaxy for millions of years. No one has ever successfully fought them off before. Before us, Sarah corrected. Before us, Dr. Vasquez agreed. But that raises an interesting question. What do we do now? We've successfully defended our world, but we're essentially prisoners in our own solar system. If we reveal our true capabilities, we become a target for every power in the galaxy. It was a sober thought. Humanity had spent 6,000 years preparing to defend Earth, but no one had planned for what came after victory. We continue to watch and learn, Vale decided. We expand our hidden installations, develop our technology further, and prepare for the day when we might be able to help other species fighting for their survival. A secret guardian fleet? Sarah asked. Operating from hidden bases to protect civilizations that can't protect themselves. Something like that. But first, we need to understand this galaxy better. Dr. Vasquez, I want detailed analysis of every civilization in the Devour databases. Their technology, their capabilities, their vulnerabilities. As the briefing concluded, teams of specialists began the enormous task of cataloging galactic civilization. They were no longer just defending Earth. They were preparing to take an active role in shaping the future of the galaxy itself. In the depths of space, construction drones that looked like natural asteroids began building new facilities. Hidden shipyards where vessels that officially didn't exist could be constructed. Communication arrays that could monitor activities across hundreds of light years. Research stations where human and alien technology could be combined in ways that neither species had imagined. Humanity had survived its first contact with hostile aliens, but the 6,000-year war was just beginning. The next phase would take them to the stars themselves, carrying with them the lessons learned from a civilization that had never stopped preparing for war. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, though the galaxy remained unaware that such an event had ever occurred. Deep in the Kepler 442 system, a desperate transmission reached Earth through quantum communication arrays that officially didn't exist. This is Director Korvash of the Zalani Collective. Our world is under attack by a Devourer harvester fleet. Estimated time until planetary sterilization, 14 hours. If anyone receives this message, please remember that we try to preserve the art and knowledge of our people. In the hidden command center beneath Mount Denali, General Vale and his expanded staff monitored the distress signal, while holographic displays showed the tactical situation 300 light-years away. The Zalani homeworld was surrounded by 8 Devourer ships, their weapons systematically destroying cities that had stood for millennia. Can we reach them in time? Vale asked Admiral Chun, who now commanded humanity's secret expeditionary fleet. The Shadow of Earth is our fastest long-range vessel, Sarah replied, consulting her tactical display. Even using the experimental quantum drive, we're looking at a 12-hour journey. That gives us a 2-hour window. Not much margin for error. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward, her face grim as she shared the intelligence her team had gathered. General, I have to advise against intervention. The Zalani system is deep in Devourer space. If we're detected, it could expose our true capabilities to the Empire. Vale studied the displays showing the ongoing destruction of an alien civilization. Every military instinct told him that the smart play was to stay hidden, to protect Earth by maintaining the fiction of human weakness. But sometimes the smart play wasn't the right play. Admiral Chun, prepare for immediate departure. We're going to save those people. The Shadow of Earth was unlike any vessel in recorded human history. Built in the hidden shipyards of the asteroid belt, it incorporated technology that merged human engineering with principles learned from captured Devourer systems. To outside observers, it appeared to be a natural asteroid, but beneath its camouflaged surface lay weapons that could crack planets. Captain Maria Santos, who had commanded the dreadnought Retribution during the Battle of Sol, now served as the Shadow's commanding officer. Her crew of 60 represented the best and brightest of humanity's hidden space force, volunteers who had agreed to spend their lives operating in the shadows between the stars. Quantum drive charging, reported Chief Engineer Thompson from his station in the vessel's exotic matter core. Estimated time to Kepler, 442, 11 hours, 43 minutes. As the Shadow of Earth folded space around itself and vanished from the solar system, emergency protocols activated across humanity's hidden network. If the mission failed, if the ship was captured or destroyed, Earth would implement Protocol Omega and disappear completely from galactic detection. The journey to Kepler 442 gave the crew time to study their target and plan their approach. The Devourer fleet consisted of 1 heavy cruiser and 7 destroyers, arranged in the standard harvesting formation around the Zalani homeworld. The good news is that it's a relatively small force, reported Tactical Officer Kim during the mission briefing. The bad news is that even a small Devourer fleet is designed to eliminate any possible resistance. Captain Santos studied the tactical displays with the eye of someone who had spent years learning to think like the enemy. They're not expecting opposition. That's their weakness. They've grown complacent after millions of years of easy victories. What do we know about the Zilani themselves? Asked Commander Rodriguez, the ship's intelligence officer. Dr. Vasquez, participating in the briefing through quantum communication, provided the background. Highly advanced civilization, roughly equivalent to Earth's early 21st century in terms of general technology, but with some interesting specializations in biotechnology and environmental management. Population approximately 4 billion. They've been aware of the Devourer threat for centuries, but lack any effective defense against it. As the shadow of Earth approached the Zilani system, its sensors detected the ongoing devastation. 3 of the planet's major continents had already been stripped of all surface life, their biomass converted into raw materials for the Devourer war machine. "My God," whispered Communications Officer Torres as she monitored the planetary transmissions. "They're still broadcasting, still trying to preserve their cultural records even as their world dies around them." The Zilani transmissions painted a picture of a species facing extinction with dignity and courage. Musicians continued to perform in the ruins of their cities. Scientists shared their discoveries freely, hoping that someone, somewhere, would continue their research. Parents told stories to their children, determined that the last generation would know the heroes and dreams of their people. "All stations, battle stations," Captain Santos announced. "We're going to give those people something they haven't had in a very long time: hope." The shadow of Earth dropped out of quantum drive at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, its sensors immediately cataloging the enemy formation. The Devourer ships maintained their standard harvesting pattern, with a heavy cruiser Void Reaper coordinating the operation while the destroyers systematically stripped the planet below. Santos opened a channel to her crew. "Remember, people, this isn't about winning a battle. It's about proving that the Devourers can be beaten. Every ship we destroy here weakens their hold on this galaxy." The first indication the Devourers had of trouble came when their sensor arrays detected an impossible energy signature approaching from Galactic North. The readings showed a vessel using technology that matched known civilization in their databases. Commander Thexel reported the sensor operator aboard the Void Reaper. "Unknown contact approaching at high velocity. Energy signature indicates advanced propulsion and weapon systems." Commander Thexel, a veteran of 300 harvesting operations, studied the sensor data with growing confusion. "Origin: unknown." The vessel appeared from nowhere, using what appears to be a quantum displacement drive. Before Thexel could respond, the unknown ship opened fire. The shadow of Earth's main gun, charged with power drawn from controlled quantum reactions, struck the Devourer destroyer Swift Harvest with enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The alien ship simply ceased to exist, its molecular bonds disrupted by forces that operated on the fundamental level of reality itself. "All ships, battle formation," Thexel commanded, but his fleet was already under coordinated assault. The unknown vessel moved with impossible agility, its weapons systems firing with precision that defied the laws of physics. Captain Santos fought her ship with the skill of someone who had trained for this moment her entire life. The shadow of Earth danced between enemy fire, its defensive systems absorbing energy that would have destroyed conventional vessels, while its weapons reached out to touch alien ships with the fury of a sun. A second Devourer destroyer exploded. Then a third. The enemy fleet, which had been systematically destroying a planet minutes earlier, found itself fighting for survival against a single ship that fought like nothing they had ever encountered. "Impossible." Thexel raged as another of his ships died. "No single vessel possesses this kind of firepower." But the evidence was undeniable. In less than 20 minutes, the shadow of Earth had reduced the Devourer fleet from 8 ships to 3. The survivors, including Thexel's own heavy cruiser, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. The final moments of the Battle of Kepler 442 were broadcast across the galaxy through hidden monitoring stations. Commander Thexanael, faced with the destruction of his entire fleet, made the choice that would change galactic history. He surrendered. Unknown vessel. Thexanael transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat. I request terms of surrender. My fleet yields to your superior force. Captain Santos had been prepared for many contingencies, but this wasn't one of them. After a brief consultation with Earth Command, she responded, Devourer vessels, this is Captain Santos of the Terran Defense Force. You will power down all weapons and prepare for boarding. Any attempt to escape or destroy your vessels will result in your immediate annihilation. As human boarding teams secured the surviving Devourer ships, the response from the Zilani homeworld was immediate and overwhelming. Cities that had been broadcasting their last cultural testaments suddenly erupted in celebration. The impossible had happened. Someone had come to help. Director Corvash himself led the Zilani delegation that met with Captain Santos aboard the captured Devourer flagship. The alien leader was humanoid in general appearance, though his scaled skin and elongated features marked him as clearly non-human. Captain Santos, Corvash said through the universal translator, in our people's history, we have legends of heroes who arrive at the darkest hour to turn the tide of battle. Today, you have made those legends real. Santos accepted the gratitude with the professionalism of someone who knew that the real work was just beginning. Director Corvash, my people, and I are glad we could help. But you need to understand that this incident must remain classified. If the Devourer Empire learns what really happened here, they will return with overwhelming force. What do you suggest? We're going to stage this to look like your people somehow captured advanced weapons from the attacking fleet and turned them against their creators. As far as the galaxy knows, the Zilani achieved an impossible victory through their own courage and ingenuity. It was a careful deception, but a necessary one. The official record would show that the Zilani had somehow managed to capture one of the Devourer's ships early in the attack and used its weapons against the rest of the fleet. Unlikely, but not impossible enough to trigger a major investigation. As the Shadow of Earth prepared for its journey home, Captain Santos met privately with Director Corvash to discuss the future. Captain, my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid, Corvash said. If there is ever anything the Zilani Collective can do to assist your people, you need only ask. Santos smiled, thinking of the vast network of hidden allies that humanity was slowly building across the galaxy. Actually, Director, there might be something. My people are interested in establishing informal relationships with other species who value freedom and independence. I believe we could arrange such relationships. The return journey to Earth gave Santos and her crew time to process what they had accomplished. They had not only saved an entire civilization, but had also taken the first step toward building a secret alliance of free species opposed to Devourer domination. But perhaps most importantly, they had proven that the 6,000-year preparation had been worth it. Humanity was no longer hiding in fear of alien invasion. They were taking the fight to the enemy, one world at a time. In the hidden command center beneath Mount Denali, General Vale watched the tactical reports with satisfaction. The Battle of Kepler 442 had been a complete success, but it was only the beginning. Dr. Vasquez, I want a complete analysis of every species in the Devourer database. We need to identify potential allies and coordinate our activities. Already in progress, General. We've identified 17 civilizations that could serve as foundation members of an anti-Devourer alliance. And our fleet expansion? Admiral Chun stepped forward with a data tablet showing construction schedules. The new shipyards will be operational within 6 months. We can have a dozen vessels like the Shadow of Earth ready for deployment within 2 years. Vale nodded, studying the galactic map that showed the locations of both potential allies and remaining Devourer strongholds. The war that had begun 6,000 years earlier was entering a new phase, one that would determine the future of freedom in the galaxy. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced to his staff, Humanity's long wait is over. It's time to remind the galaxy what it means to be free. Across the stars, in hidden facilities and secret shipyards, the descendants of the people who had prepared for 6 millennia began building something that had never existed before, a force capable of liberating the galaxy itself. The Devourers had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for millions of years. But they had never faced an enemy that had spent 6,000 years learning how to fight them. Humanity was no longer prey. They had become the hunters.